Why Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is effective in a street fight. One thing that people don't know or acknowledge is the fact that the streets aren't safe anymore, so getting attacked or involved in a fight is almost very likely. But you don't have to be caught off guard or handicapped. You need to be prepared and ready to defend yourself at any point in time. And what better way to keep yourself prepared for such times than to learn a self-defense system? Well, in today's video, we'll be looking at yet another martial art called the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and why it's very effective in a street fight. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or simply called BJJ, is considered one of the best means of self-defense that anyone can learn. And one of the reasons for that is that it teaches you to fight on the ground. And more times than none, street fights always end up on the ground. Now, based on statistics, you'll see most people who get involved in street fights have never had any form of formal training and basically don't know how to fight, which explains why, with just a few punches, both people fighting are down to wrestling on the ground. And for this reason, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu teaches its students how to grapple and fight right there on the ground. So if you have any knowledge on how to execute takedowns and control your opponent on the ground, then you have all you need to defend yourself. You might actually question how and why this is so easy. But the truth is that once you're able to take your opponent down while making sure they don't get to hit you as you pin them to the ground. Truth is, nothing causes more anxiety than engaging in a street fight. I mean, first of all, you have a crazy rush of adrenaline, and if we're being sincere, you're scared for your life. They may or may not be armed, so literally your instincts want you to leave without even finding out if they are. But when you're trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you're prepared for a moment like this. Style and techniques. Apart from the fact that you're trained to give perfect punches and kicks, BJJ training is designed in a way you learn to stay calm under pressure and also stay relaxed in cases like this. How does this training work? Well, you're consistently placed in uncomfortable spots and then you're expected to work your way out of them. Hence, mastering staying calm when under pressure and working through these situations. Sometime at the beginning of this video, I mentioned how you're likely to be challenged by a fighter who most likely has never been formally trained, and that still stands. But what of a case where you do face someone that has a lot of skills in grappling? Or in another situation, you're met by someone who easily grabs you by the neck or chokes the life out of you. That definitely sounded a lot scarier than I intended it to, but that doesn't make it any further from the truth. However, there's definitely a saving grace in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that teaches you in training how to defend yourself against some of these submissions correctly and chokes precisely. And in their curriculums, they make sure to include self-defense against headlocks and chokes. And all of these are taught from the very first time you start off as a white belt. Hence, you're able to defend yourself using Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu if anyone tries to put you in a submission or chokehold in a street fight so you can escape. Here's something that has to be said. Being in shape is something that people might not pay attention to, but I'm here to tell you that being in shape is very important. First, remember that fighting can be very exhausting, so if you aren't in shape, you're more likely to be harmed. It's not just enough to have the knowledge of defending yourself. You'll also need to be in shape to actually do that for yourself. And just like the other martial arts, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu helps in improving your conditioning and strength, making your movements 1,000 times better compared to someone who has never trained. And as you continue to train, you continue to improve in conditioning, and so does your timing. Now, aside from the techniques and the physical benefits of training Jiu-Jitsu, there are other more important things that can be learned from this martial art, which are discipline and respect. And respect causes you to treat other people right, so you don't have to stress about using the BJJ. If there's anything I love to see, it's smaller guys taking out larger opponents. And guess what? BJJ does teach this. The truth is, you really can't tell what your opponent would look like if they were small or a lot bigger than you. And the reality remains that if you have a much larger opponent, it can be a big issue for a regular fighter. But as a trained Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter, this wouldn't exactly be a problem because you're taught, even as a small individual, how to overpower and beat the bigger opponents. A good example is the Gracie brothers, Carlos and Helio. They were smaller men. However, they were masters in grappling, defeating even larger men. I believe we've been able to cover the physical aspects, techniques, and benefits. However, aside from all this, this martial art, BJJ, teaches its students to be mentally prepared for fights. And this is because fighting is equally mental as it is physical. So while these bullies may come around spewing threats of violence, you're able to see all the chances of certain things happening and act on them. Now, don't get me wrong. See this as sort of a hospital in which even when you're not mentally ready, you can become ready just by learning BJJ. One last thing that needs to be addressed about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is that it teaches to neutralize your opponent. Yes, you heard that right. The importance and fun in knowing how to fight is not in hurting your opponents, but in neutralizing them. So instead of getting distracted by wanting to go ahead and hurt someone, your focus should be on neutralizing your opponents by using control and taking away their chances of hurting you. And you can accomplish that by taking them to the ground. Once you're able to do that, you'll have them neutralized and no longer a threat, and you can keep them in that position until the authorities are able to take over. As I'll point out once again, this is a street fight that lacks honor, meaning your opponent can be violent and in some cases can overpower you. And unlike some other martial arts, you aren't taught what to do when you're on your back. But with BJJ, the case is different, as you're given the resources and techniques you need. Therefore, it's quite clear that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is effective in a street fight and can even be considered one of the most effective martial arts for self-defense. And with that, we've come to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it or found it helpful, then do well to smash that like button and subscribe if you'd love more content like this. Ring the bell notification so you don't miss an upload, and we'll see you in the next video.